session is by Mr. Ravi Garikapati. His journey includes serving as the former CTO of Flipkart, where he led a diverse and talented team across various domains, including product management, engineering, design, data science, IT, security, and infrastructure. Currently, Mr. Ravi wears multiple hats as the co-founder and CEO of Davinta Financial Services, a fintech startup focused on financial inclusion at the grassroots levels. He's also a board member of NIIT Limited. Let's have him now join us online for the session where we'll all get to learn something new from his learnings and experiences. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for that wonderful, endearing introduction. Much appreciated.
Ravi,
Yeah, sorry, Vijay, you were going to say something? Yeah.
I was going to say, since I was talking about coaches and advisors, here is a true coach.
Thank you, Vijay. Very endearing. And you also mentioned, prior to what you just said in your concluding remark, you should be very welcoming and you have that courage to take advice. I think the founders have to demonstrate that. You are a founder for a reason, and we all appreciate it, but you should also have the openness and courage to take advice. And I think, we know how, these two gentlemen, that you have a privilege to interact with these two gentlemen. They have a treasure trove of knowledge and wisdom, yet they are so humble and they display humility every step of the way. And that will allow us to, or enable us to be able to share what we feel is appropriate, right? And it's a pleasure to be on their board. And I will also take a couple of minutes to give a little bit of a background about myself. And in doing so, I'm also going to share my life lessons, right? And I don't want to bore you with my experience, but largely highlight the life lessons as I embarked on about 5 startups. Now I'm looking at potentially a sixth one of a different nature. So yeah, a quick introduction. Been in the industry for about 30 plus years. Spent early part of my career in Silicon Valley, working for companies like IBM and Oracle. Very passionate about building enterprise software and primarily database technologies. That's where I spent good chunk of my early part of my career, about 10 years, I would say. My foray into startup started back in 1999, and primarily because of one gentleman some of you may know. His name is Sabir Bhatia. That was back on the heels of him being able to sell Hotmail to Microsoft. Just after he got done with that, he was figuring out what next, and I happened to know him. And then he was in Valley. He flew down from Seattle and he met up with few of us. And then there's this thing called Arzu that came into being. I'll tell you what it is, and there's a lesson for me I would share. It was all about, that was back in 99. Many of you may be young, and I also, by the way, I want to congratulate folks who made it to this growth camp. And I got to believe that we picked creme la creme, and you certainly made that cut. So it's a privilege for me to be on this call and interacting with you folks. So coming back to that, back in 1999. eBay and Amazon and the internet itself is pretty new. E-commerce itself is just about emerging, and eBay and Amazon were probably 3-4-year-old companies, and here we are wanting to actually do some path-breaking stuff on e-commerce, which was to do with the collaborative browsing and creating a peer-to-peer chat in a virtual environment, bringing the virtual expert community. What we want to do is simulate the shopping experience that we have in real life on internet when you're doing e-commerce, right? And the idea was great, and that's how the commerce happens in real world. If buying a camera and your friend is an expert, you call him up and take him along with you, and then go to a retail store and then take his opinion and before you make a purchasing decision. So we wanted to mimic that, and we created this collaborative browsing. Chat itself is a novel concept. Now everybody chats. I'm talking about 1999. But guess what? We are way ahead of times, right? We didn't allow the e-commerce phenomenon to settle down. We are putting too much of emphasis on this technology-led shopping. when people themselves, not very comfortable about e-commerce, they're still going to the shop and buying stuff, whether it's a Best Buy or a Good Guys or Circuit City, they were still around. And so the lesson for us, and that actually created a lot of angst amongst the founding team. We are self-doubting ourselves, questioning ourselves, and then pointing fingers, when reality was we are ahead of time. So now we need to take cognizance of the market and how market is shaping. Sometimes you may have the best idea, best team, if you're way ahead of times, things may not align well, and that's a lesson. So in hindsight, I could make that conclusion, but that wasn't easy to make when we were looking at the problem statement, and we made all kinds of wrong conclusions as to why we are not gaining traction. So that unfortunately that thing didn't last for long. It's about only year end away. But 2000 is when I actually embarked on another journey. It's called Andale. We built the first SaaS platform. We didn't coin the word SaaS back in the day. It was known as ASP, Application Service Provider. That was the word acronym that was more popular. SaaS came into being much later, but it is in every sense a SaaS platform. It's a multi-tenanted platform. We built it for mom and pop shops who are selling stuff in the neighborhood shops. Again, our focus was e-commerce. Now eBay and Amazon established themselves a little bit more than what it was, a couple of years prior. And we felt we should build a platform where we'll enable these mom and pop shops to be able to sell stuff or merchandise their stuff on marketplaces like eBay and Amazon, and have a far bigger reach than they would otherwise have in their neighborhood. But trying to do that on their own, it would be next to impossible task for them, and they are typically 2-3 people a shop. So the idea was good, and what we kind of, as we went down the path, we raised quite a bit of money. We raised close to about $40 million. Investors were excited, and we had a great founding team. A few founders from Stanford, one from Berkeley. And I was not a founding member, but I was a CTO. But not a founder, I was a CTO and a founding member. But the thing that I learned there is, the markets, platform like eBay and Amazon, they also saw an opportunity to onboard these guys and create a marketplace. So they were doing a bunch of things that we were, focusing on. And then we had to fight with Gorilla, they had, the reach, they had, resources disproportionately higher than what we had. So what we realized after 3 years is, it's also important to figure out, what I call it as, need for the real need for the customer eventually lead to product market fit. And for me, it's not good enough to have a great team, not good enough to have a great technology. It's not good enough to have, all the capital and resources. Sometimes you may be in the right place at the right time too, but you also have to have the smarts to figure out, when all of those in place, will the customer, the $1 million question is, will the customer be paying for what you're offering, right? In this case, a lot of things that we provided, are being made free by these big platforms, and it kind of lent itself well for the platforms to do it. Then the question was, what is that? It took 3 years for us to realize that, by the way. In hindsight, I'm making it as if it's a simple conclusion. And then 3 years later, what we realized, what is that these guys would not, the platforms would not do that will help a customer, and customer willing to pay, right? And what's inherently conflicting for these platforms that they wouldn't necessarily embark on. And then that's an opportunity for us, provided customers willing to see that as a value and pay for it, right? That's where we kind of brought a product called Research, this for these small sellers. Essentially, we are telling the sellers, look, there's no price discovery. eBay isn't doing necessarily, because eBay is a marketplace for collectibles and antiques and stuff like that. These are not standard SKUs that are sold by the Samsungs of the world and the Sonys. The pricing is very arbitrary. So it's a classic demand supply. There's a demand, you can actually, increase your price. If there's no demand, you have to position it right so the demand gets created, right? So that information, there's a lot of information asymmetry, and eBay wasn't doing a good job to, in fact, they're thriving on the information asymmetry and creating all kinds of uncertainty, and that was working in their favor. So we actually looked at all the data, the unstructured data, all the listings, and we actually created a pricing engine, and we are telling these sellers, in each category, these are the hot selling products, and this is the price point. This is typically a sell-through rate. And most of these sellers, they don't manufacture anything. They actually source it from XYZ, and they price it appropriately. And our pricing engine, our analysis around sell-through rate, trends, and so on and so forth was a real boon for their business. And long story short, that was our epiphany moment, and that was our beachhead. And we've seen great success, and then we built close to 2 million seller base, and then eventually we sold it to Alibaba. So the lesson there is, you have to be cognizant of your ecosystem. You have to be aware of all the forces that are at play, and we also have to quickly iterate. We took 3 years. We could we have gone to that conclusion much sooner? In hindsight, absolutely. If only you heard what customer is willing to pay, you're able to iterate it quickly, you would have gone down that path much quicker than we eventually ended up doing. So that was our lesson at Andale. And then after we sold that to Alibaba, my next gig was a pretty interesting one, pretty unconventional at the time when I embarked on the journey. It was to do with a company called 24/7 Customer. It was a BPO for all practical purposes, right? And they had butt in the seat agents serving marquee customers, and I joined them with some prodding from my mentors and coaches in the Valley. There's a gentleman by name Ram Shriram who still sits on Google board. He was my mentor when I was running Andale. So I, wanted to, the basic premise that I had back in the day was, look, this is 2009. Back in the day, we didn't have this a whole thing called big data, but I knew, being a database guy, the data that people get hold of typically in an organization, which is largely around relational database, is a fraction of the data that our organization has. A lot of data resides in unstructured data, whether it's your emails or chat transcripts or voice transcripts, and that data is disproportionately much higher than what data that is residing in relation database. If only someone can actually draw some insights out of that and make it actionable, businesses can function way differently, both on the efficiency front and effectiveness. That was my white paper kind of a thing. So that was a real SaaS play and enterprise play. But in order to pull this off, you have to crack the go-to-market, and cracking go-to-market in enterprise thing is a very tough play. So the wise person that Ram is, he said, look, don't try doing it yourself. And here is somebody who probably need your solution far better than anybody, and that is 24/7 Customer. They want to transform themselves as a tech-first company. Right now, it's a butt in the seat BPO gig, but they have access to marquee logos across many verticals. These are the AT&Ts of the world, Verizon's, Bank of America's, Macy's of the world, and they had a treasure trove of data, but they're not making much out of it. So I kind of joined them as a head of innovation labs, and built $100 million enterprise business. And here, I got to give credit to the CEO of that company, or founder CEO, PV Kannan. I say this because what we were trying to do is basically using a platform. We are saying, look, AT&T has $100 million contact center budget. At least at 10 to 15% of that contact center budget can be brought down with the advent of technology, with self-service. What is chatbot and chat GPT now? We dabbled with that in some form or shape back in 2009. And our pitch is, look, nobody wakes up wanting to talk to a contact center agent. In fact, it's a very frustrating experience to talk to an agent. But in the absence of not being able to find what they want, they end up picking up a phone. What if I build a platform that will enable your customer to self-service themselves? In the process, you actually enhance the customer experience, but also bring down your budget significantly by about 15%. That was the mode. In the beginning, right, it was almost cannibalizing our own revenues, because the company was all about, building revenue stream using contact center agents. It was cannibalizing our own revenue stream. But that's a classic innovator's dilemma. If you don't do this, somebody else will disrupt you. So the CEO or the founders have that conviction, and believe in that future, and where the future is heading. And fortunately, I found the right people, and we embarked on the journey, and we built about $100 million enterprise business, and it was a force to reckon with. So that was, the lesson there is, technology. You can actually bring technology, and what is perceived to be non-glamorous, non-tech led business, which is a BPO business. If you have a right founders, and you have cognizance of where the market is heading, in the short term, you can take few hits, which is to let go certain revenue stream. You can be a thought leader, or you can be an industry leader, which is what happened when we embarked on the journey. That was till 2015, and then serendipity. I would say it's serendipity. I happened to run into Flipkart founders Sachin and Vinny back in Bangalore in 2015, and Flipkart was in the cusp of explosion in terms of scale. They were actually bringing a lot of senior leaders from Valley, from Google, and back then it was Facebook and Microsoft. And I happened to be in Bangalore in their backyard. The opportunity was too good to pass, and then I came on board as a CTO. And I was always an entrepreneur, so I also took on the mantle of building new business streams, which was EdTech from ground up, and a fintech, in addition to my role as a CTO, which was a functional role. So the lesson that I learned is, it's a lot of people saw where e-commerce was heading in India. Flipkart was definitely at the right place at the right time. But what separated Flipkart from the rest is the bold and audacious thinking that the founders had, and the autonomy and ownership they gave to folks like us to be able to build businesses like AdTech, which was $1 billion revenue stream right now. Fintech could be that it's still work in progress. And they just empowered and gave us that autonomy. And they also believed that tech can be a major disruptor, and they localized. They had used tech to come up with a localized innovation, both on the processes and on the technology front. Processes, at the biggest process innovation back in 2011 or 12 is cash on delivery, right? E-commerce would not have been what it is today if we didn't instill trust amongst the consumer base, that you can actually look at stuff on on a browser and feel confident about ordering, and expect that the stuff will land at your doorstep on time. That wasn't an easy thing to achieve on day one. COD actually comforted many of them. Cash on delivery, I'll only pay when I see the merchandise show up at my door, and I have a feel for it. And I think that's a huge disruptor. And of course, we also done many things, because tier 2, democratizing access to commerce through technology was our mission statement. We could have done that only through technology, because in the early days of e-commerce, tier 2 wasn't necessarily blessed with access to good internet bandwidth. So there's a lot of technology innovation that we embarked on, using progressive web app, and the things of that nature, which was par for the course now. Back in 2010, 11, even when I was CTO, we did a bunch of such innovation to localize. So the lesson for me is, you have to have that bold, audacious thinking. A lot of things were, we just had a bias for action. We didn't know many answers up front. We are treading on the path that nobody else treaded in the past. So go out there with open mind. In some cases there was data, in some cases there's no data. So we had certain hypothesis. We quickly validated that hypothesis, We iterated. Some experiments didn't work the way we anticipated, and some turned out to be great. And the agile thinking, bold and audacious approach to problem solving, and then tech first solves are some of the takeaways for us in a Flipkart journey. So yeah, now that I set the stage, and it's more about what you guys embarked on and the exciting stuff that you're doing, and wanting to make it as interactive as it can be, and want to understand your trials and tribulations and success and failures, and want to take my offer my 2 cents as well.
Yeah, so now open for questions. So that's much. Anyone want to start? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. See, with respect to B2B market, okay, because all along this particular part of the journey, as you really would really be able to see, the real success measures for B2C is, as you really rightly said, the revenue metrics are out of there. But for a B2B product building or platform building, what are those particular important matrices to ensure there is a perfect product market fit, or the MVP is all really ready and now we can go all in terms of putting or betting on that particular product that we have built and putting or marshalling all our resources to make it more success. So what are those particular matrices one really should really look forward?
Thank you for bringing that question. I will go a little outside and eventually get to that, because I want to address what you just called up in a comprehensive way. So it'll probably take a little longer, but this primarily for B2B businesses, right? B2B business is very different from B2C. In fact, as many would easily attest, in a Flipkart journey was completely B2C. The playbook is very different. But I also have a great understanding of building B2B, doing it right and doing it incorrectly. So let me share my vantage point here. So first and foremost, right, I would start with understanding your potential market segment for the service or product you're looking at, and go deep into your market segment and further break it down to your target customer segments. And then there'll be a distinct target customer segments, and then further break it down, and you have to really identify what can be your potential beachhead segment, all right? And actually, it's very important in a B2B for starters to go narrow and understand that figure out that beachhead, and then you sort of start with identifying the ideal customer profile. ICP is the common word that people use in that beachhead, right? You have to have a real good understanding, not a loosey-goosey definition of ICP. For that, you need to be in the market, in the field, talking to a bunch of different personas, and eventually you'll arrive at your ICP, the ideal customer profile. And then I would strongly encourage you find few early adopters for the stuff that you're doing. And at this point, don't bring in pricing, don't bring in unit economics, any of that burden, right? You start with your early adopters and start co-designing. There's a merit to sort of design your thing. This is a new way of doing B2B stuff. You can have your greatest idea. I'm not saying that's bad, but there is no downside doing this upfront research, understanding what your target segment, beachhead segment within that, understanding the ICP, and bringing some early adopters, right? And co-designing with them. And then eventually you'll get to a point where you will come you'll arrive at a product or a solution construct that customers are willing to pay, right? And that's when when you arrive at that, that's when your PMF or product market fit. In the end of the day, you build something that's a big enough, that has a big enough segment. It's validated by your early adopters. And when you pitch to the new customers, they are willing to pay, right? That's a great proof point that you're embarked on something right? Then you can look at adjacencies outside of beachhead. That's for scale and growth, right? Now, going back to your point, at this point, you basically SaaS has this advantage once you acquire this customer, B2B rather, B2B has this, once you acquire this customer, right, retention is your key metric, right? You need to be able to hold on to that customer for a good length of time. Most B2B businesses, they have revenue streams that are adjacent to your core thing, right? So you have to take a lifetime value of the customer as well, right? That, which is why the retention is important. Your fundamental, the product or the base product, which is what helped you acquire the customer, it has to do the bang up job, and that will ensure the retention. Then you have to work towards the lifetime value of the customer. So the CAC to LTV is one metric that you need to look at, which implicitly bakes in the retention rate of the customer, and that is the fundamental metric. And eventually, over the lifetime value, again, it depends from business to business, and usually anything in the range of 7 to 10 CAC to LTV in a 5-year horizon is regarded to be a good baseline. People exceed that as well.
See, these decisions typically really need to be made in the early life cycle, because you really need to marshal your resources. They are scarcely available in a startup, right? So what are those particular early indicators? Because when we really do talk about these set of indicators as a longevity or the retention of the customer, there has to be a real good amount of time I really need to give. And there obviously I really need to remain invested with my resources during that time, right? And that kind of a leisure liberty is not available for a startup. Maybe the startup which is really bootstrapped and not funded, to be precise, as a difference. So in that kind of a thing, what would really be the early indicator for this PMF, or the next level, whether this is a go, no go kind of a product or the concept that we are really talking with the market?
Yeah. One thing, again, there's a lot of things I want to share. That's why, I may not go straight to your point, but bring a few other points for the benefit of others as well. See, when you're talking of a dynamic where it's bootstrapped early stage, right? First of all, I wouldn't recommend you relying on anybody whatsoever. And the founders have to play the game, right? You could have maybe interns or maybe a junior folks to do some, for lack of better words, some, grunt work, which is required in any business. But founders have to roll up the sleeve, and I typically look at 3 personas there in any B2B business. One, a guy who really understands go-to-market nuances, the business founder, understands the customer, inspire confidence in the customer about your story, the product you're selling, the business founder, typically the CEO type persona. Another one is the domain expert, a guy, if you're building a EdTech thing for Industry 5.0, you need to have a domain expert who understands the nuances of manufacturing and Industry 5.0, right? That's the domain expert. It's entirely possible a CEO, a business CEO can don both hats in some cases, but that's it. The third is obviously, in this day and age, product and tech thinking is not an afterthought. You need to have the CTO or a product tech thinker, right? And these guys have to be doing the heavy lifting. There's no delegation whatsoever. But startup is not for anybody. You need to create time and do the heavy lifting yourself. Absolutely no scope for delegation in the from 0 to 1. 1 is when you establish PMF, right? There's absolutely, I emphasize, absolutely no luxury for delegation. You don't even have an excuse that I don't have enough fund or resources. You got to do the heavy lifting yourself and focus on what is important and create time. That's one. Now going back to when do you get the indicator that you have PMF? First and foremost, first indicator is people are ready to pay, right? There's nice to have, there's a must have, there's a compelling value for which I'm ready to pay. There's no other metric other than people are ready to pay for your thing. That's the first indicator, right? People willing to pay. And the second thing is, now that I have a solution that people are willing to pay, and can I actually figure out a GTM? The product market fit is one, Product go-to-market fit is another thing. PGTMF, that's a new buzzword I want to show. Each product requires certain go-to-market. There's no such thing called a standard go-to-market play, regardless of what product or service that you're embarking on. So you also have to get a good understanding of what go-to-market will align to the product or service that you're taking to the market. So you have to spend time there, and then you need to have a channels or a go-to-market playbook that will give you access to the similar type of customers who see the value and willing to pay, right? When these two are in place, you can claim, and then, better believe, you present these two metrics to 10 investors, I'll say 7 out of 10 would be ready to look at you. And then it's a scale and growth, right? Now you figured out all that stuff. Now you have method to the madness. Now you need to have right resources to scale it, right? And then one of the in fuel there is obviously capital, and people are willing to back you at that point.
Next question.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question.
Yeah.
So the more we see Gen AI and tech getting democratized, the more innovation in these spaces getting reduced. The one problem I keep facing when it comes to tech decisions is simply that what you build and what you service. I want to understand a decision-making framework of yours, or what things you take into consideration when you build tech yourself, and what things can you outsource. Simply, just to give you an anecdote, maybe all of us are tech founders, and most of us will have an LMS of their own, like built on their own, even though there's so many open source options available. So where in this framework do you consider to make things yourself, and again, outsourcing it to maybe a service or something like that?
Yeah, great question. And as typically tech founders, I won't blame them. They run into this conundrum, and some of it is a bit emotional, some of it is a bit aspirational. And both cases, I think you have a propensity to make wrong calls. I think it's clear. You need to. That's where you need to have basics in place, right? What is that you are essentially? Where is your value coming from? What is the core and fundamentality of business? That tech is out there disrupting. What is you do require some tech to do some run-of-the-mill task. If you don't have tech, you maybe your efficiency is at risk, and it's not necessarily a core or IP to your business. You should be able to that's an easy call. Whatever is not core and what's not IP, if you have if you can afford outsourcing it, sometimes it's not even the question of it's affording. If I have to build core and I have bandwidth of X, and then I can also do this peripheral stuff, you need to have absolute clarity that your mind share should go towards building IP, and your tech bandwidth should go there. And that's what will differentiate your business, right? Yeah, that's non-negotiable. And then the whatever is on the periphery side, obviously you take that call. Sometimes it's not even core and IP. Sometimes even a go-to-market, right? So you probably think it is your core, but at this point in time, you don't have the bandwidth. You as a tech co-founder, you're not just focusing on building tech. You're running around, doing heavy lifting and in other areas as well. You clearly don't have a bandwidth. So there again, I've seen people, delaying the decision of actually taking help from outside. Go-to-market is important. In this day and age, no idea that you think will stand unique for eternity. The shelf life for an idea to be unique is at best 2 quarters. These days, many of you would argue it's a quarter. So innovation, you're on the innovation treadmill. So go-to-market is super important. You have to have that early mover advantage if you can, right? So get something out there with the help of others. And then on recognizing that it's your core, at the right time, bring it back and keep the core, non-core thing outside as augmentation, right? And that's what my approach would be.
Hi, Ravi. Thanks for your introductions. Really good to have you here. My name is Sagar. Harsh, who you just spoke to, was the CTO. We run an EdTech company, and it primarily focuses on soft skills, communication, collaboration. It's to make young Indians more effective communicators. So since it's an early stage startup, we keep having conversations about product management and how to sort of deal with product calls. And yesterday, actually, in fact, I asked a question to the CTO of NIIT as well as to how to make product calls where now in an edtech company, you will always also have a course development or, curriculum developers as well, and how to sort of help them work in tandem with the product team. How to build a culture where the course developers or the core educationalists also understand the product really well or understand how we can build product features. Because when I talk to my course developers saying, hey, why don't we think about how to solve this problem well using technology? I think there is a gap there in terms of being able to use technology. Whereas when it comes to the people who are in the tech team, they're always thinking tech first. So there seems to be some sort of gap there. What are the techniques that you've used in terms of brainstorming when it comes to brainstorming product features or talking about the product, especially when you know what your core value prop is?
No, Sagar, I really applaud you for bringing this up. This is something that not just your startup, many organizations that I come across, even the mature organizations grapple with this, tech and product team is far removed from business or other functions. And then sometimes, they end up prescribing many things, and then the adoption isn't there or the collaboration isn't there. This is a widely prevalent in many companies, regardless of the maturity levels. I think, it's a cultural thing. Let's accept, let's address the elephant in the room. It's a cultural thing. It starts from the founders team. It starts from the founders. It starts from a CEO, and they got to bring in your case it may be different. In many cases, the silos are created, not knowing the downside, the impact that you just called out. And by the org design actually leads to that sort of silos. So leave aside the org designs. I think, we need them in this day and age. You need to, I keep telling even the engineers, right? And I'll come back to the business and the function that you spoke about as well. Engineers cannot be order takers. Engineers, and I tell product and business also, don't tell engineers how stuff. Inspire them on what and why. How do you get them to inspire them? By giving them a seat at the table, right? And then have them see the problem statement for what it is. And that's the inspiration that you need to instill across all functions. You have to bring them together, right? And you as a CEO or a founder has to believe it takes not two, many to tango, right? And you need to identify them, and you need to make that as your cultural document. And this is how you're going to run the company, right? And many people believe, oh, you know what, they have 10 other things to do. Product guy will do this gold-plated PRD, and the engineer will develop it and then shove it on the, in this case, curriculum developer or another function. How do you think, alignment? Think about it. What I just articulated. If a guy has a head on his shoulder, why would he buy into that stuff if if he didn't have a seat at the table and is not been part of it? It's virtually impossible, right? If somebody is taking it blindly, you have a wrong team in the first place, right? You're expected these people to question why they're doing what they're doing. And the whole is going to be far better than some of these parts if you bring them together. You have a solve. So people have a different lingos. They call it squads and pods and stuff like that to bring these cross-functional teams together. They swim and sink together. They have a complete ownership. There's no order taking, right? And there are a lot of people, Spotify and Airbnb, Uber, and some of these guys actually do this very effectively, right? And I try to, it's hard, maybe much easier at your scale, Sagar, but, try doing that, in a bigger organization. It's not as easy as we make it out to be. There's a legacy overhang of how things are to be done, but there's no answer. It's not an org design answer. It's a cultural thing. What you guys believe how things are to be done, and it needs to percolate down.
Thank you.
Ravi, correct me if I'm wrong. This is Abhishek Shrestha from MBA Track, but did Spotify merge all of its product management and marketing into one giant function? Or was it Airbnb?
Yeah, so I'm not up to date. I also keep looking at various cultures. You know, that may be a dramatic thing to bring all of them one. It's if it is possible, you can do it as well. But it doesn't have to be, you know, everything under one hood by org design by one leader. That's obviously you know, Ethiopian way of doing it. You know, one way to do it is, you know, in a way CEO has that, right? You know, everything rolls up to him and he can sit in every meeting and then bring all of these guys, you know, together, right? The one org design could be, you know, bring all the related functions under one hood, right? That's org design solve. I don't know how tenable it is in every organization, but you can still do it culturally, right? You know, by creating the culture. Look, that's why I use this word called pod or squad or whatever jargon that you want to use, and say, hey, you know, these are the cross-functional things that need to come together to take on this product or this initiative. It can be a business initiative, it can be a product or a tech initiative, but you know, you're doing it for a reason. The reason is to solve customer, and that will help your business grow, right? Everybody in the organization is aligned to that. There's no reason why you exist. You're in the organization for that particular reason. So everything that you do should be aligned to that. And so the striking that alignment is not a challenge at all. It's a mindset thing. It's a cultural thing. Bring all the folks who contribute to that good mission statement of solving customer together and say, you know, this is how it ought to be done, and define everybody's role. And that is not to say a business guy will do a product role and a product guy will do a business role, or a tech guy will do somebody else's role. But coming together, the buy-in is different. There's a diversity of ideas, and then once the ownership is much stronger, there's no passive aggression there. Oh, it's somebody else who did this, and you know, I'm not even involved in this process. And that's our behavior. But intellectually, you know, the collective goodness will help you solve the problem far better. You got a divergent perspective. So I actually recommend that you do it through cultural solve, not org design solve. Org design solve is not tenable.
Thank you.
Ravi, a question here.
Yeah.
This is Nihar from IXR Labs. We build virtual reality, mixed reality products for higher education. So when you were introducing yourself, you spoke about being early in the market, having a product that's probably something that the ecosystem is not supporting yet. So a couple of questions around the same. One is how long and how do you decide, and how long do you hold on to the product like that, or how did you make the call that probably this is something that we would not continue with for a long time, or probably not wait till the ecosystem sort of starts supporting it? And second, specifically when you are building products like that, there is very little by the means of playbooks or even people who can provide you genuine sort of feedback and inputs, and even customers would probably be too awed by it and not be making genuine use of the product and giving you feedback. So how did you deal with these two scenarios?
See, in the space that we are in, sorry, Ravi, right?
Nihar.
Nihar, in the space that we are in, right? Unfortunately, I know this is my personal opinion. You may get a slightly different view from others. You know, you don't have a long runway to figure out, you know, whether you know, you can stay put or, you know, pick something else, right? You know, you need to be smart enough to figure out whether there's a, you know, are you ahead of time? So there's a, you know, willing customer to pay for your solution and can do it at scale. You know, you can't sit there and wait for ecosystem to morph to your solution or tech. So you need to make that call. And, you know, and usually the answer is very simple. If you're very objective about it, not emotional about your idea, you just go pitch the right segment, who you think is the right segment. And if they don't see it value at that juncture, you know, you should be intellectually honest about it and not fool yourself. And you have to be able to make that call. That's why, you know, the startup world creatively use the word pivot. That's right. You know, pivot, you know, we use it in a sexy way, but pivot is just that. You know, you quickly, but pivot quickly, right? Pivot quickly, right? Don't drag your feet and don't be too emotional. Be honest, and the signals are very clear. right? And you don't have the luxury of stay put for long, right? You have a limited runway, so do quickly and then move on. That's when we didn't do it. History, not only my journey, and when I watched others not doing it, it didn't hold them in good stead. So I'm very emphatic when I say pivot quickly to a place where you will find the product market fit. If not, move on, do something else. You're fundamentally an entrepreneur. You have that zeal, put it to good use and solve real customer problems.
I have a question. My name is Alphonse, and I am a co-founder of an agri-tech startup. So we build quality analysis solutions for the agricultural supply chain. So just to conduct rapid quality checks for incoming products and the whole traceability thing in place.
So just to clarify, you may wonder what's an agri-tech guy doing in this room. So he's a grad of NU, startup from NU.
Newton.
Oh, Newton. Okay. Yeah.
He's a Newton who's become a nuke.
Yeah. Okay.
Vijay coined a new term for all these startups who hang out here.
Yeah.
The nuke.
Nukes.
Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
It's really great
Alphonse.
to have this conversation with you. And I just had a dilemma when you were describing the product market fit for B2B players out there. And this is between finding the early adopters for the tech and picking something that the customer is willing to pay and the whole solution is big enough. So in the process of finding what particular application is good for the customer, we just made 4 to 5 different applications, tested it out with different stakeholders of the agri supply chain, different customer profiles, different commodities, so on and so forth. And out of those 4 to 5 use cases, 3 different use cases were qualifies as something that the customer is willing to pay and is decently big enough for us to continue. So my question over here is, as an early stage startup bootstrapped, should we kind of divide the company's resources into 3 and pursue them at the same time, or just pick one of them out of the 3 and just scale that so that the revenue that is brought out by the one thing kind of compensates for the 4 or 5 things that we spend our resources on?
Yeah, please finish your thought.
There's there's that point of you could lose focus, but since we have been doing the heavy lifting of getting to all the 4 to 5 places at once, we think that from 5 to 3 it's still less of a workload. But then there's always the counter argument that you got to focus on one and get that stable source of income in place.
No, you come across like a guy who already knew the answer. But I'll make it very obvious for you in case you are on the fence here, right? What the journey that we went through is absolutely bang on. You have a idea about your customer segments, your ICPs, and then now you started doing research, talking to them and figuring out early adopters, right? And then what you're telling me now is, in this scenario, you got about 3-4 solutions where there's resonance from the market, and now we have a limited bandwidth, right? Would you look at all 3 and divvy up stuff amongst you guys, or pick one and do a bang up job and be known in the industry that you have something very differentiated and well acknowledged by the customers, and obviously scale and make it exciting product and revenue stream for you, and then bring others to the fore and at the right time, provided they also contribute and make sense for your business, right? Answer is very clear. In fact, you shouldn't even get swayed away by, oh, there are 4 guys and 4 opportunities, and I want to do all 4. That's always a recipe for disaster. That's your ambition getting the better of you, and you will come up with a very meek and suboptimal, underwhelming value proposition, and you will disappoint all 3 customer profiles, all 3 customer segments, because it's virtually impossible, no matter what your ambition, what your desire is to do a bang up job on all three, because you're a startup, a limited bandwidth. So answer is very evident. I don't even want to hop on it. It's a straightforward question. Pick the one that you think has a far better propensity to succeed. You think you can create a differentiated value related to the market and a big enough segment out there. Just that ought to be your first focus.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Hi, Ravi. This is Sachin. I have a platform called Medical Learning Hub. And we work with the pharma, the medical device companies, and so those are our clients. We serve content to healthcare providers. Right, so the question that I have is around pivot. You mentioned that in the last question, right? The one before. So when your product gets fit with, let's say, one type of a customer, and it's a matter of time, others are adopting it as well. There's the shadows there, right? I mean, it takes a long while for, at least in my industry, for other farmers to also adopt the same approach that one has adopted or a few have adopted. How do you deal with that situation where it's going in the right direction, but it's taking its own sweet time?
Yeah, this is a little trick. Sorry, this is a little tricky. I need to understand a little bit about your industry as well. But if I take away that industry context, if I have to be completely objective to what you just asked, right? For me, the definition of PMF again, I'm anal about it, and I'm not going to mince words here. Is when you have something that you found customer is willing to pay, right? And there's a value that they perceive now, right? And of course, each product has a different sales cycle. I'm very cognizant of that. Selling XYZ require X months, and selling ABC requires N months, right? But if assuming that you as a founder, you had a few options at your disposal in the industry that you're in, or the problem space that you're in, and if everything being equal, meaning you have a PMF and you have a reasonable customer segment in terms of size for both solutions, and in one case the sales cycle is far less compared to others, obviously the answer is you pick the first one, right? But if you don't have that luxury, and then you have this product that requires longer sales cycle. When you say you found a PMF for one customer, that's not PMF for me. PMF is when you actually find many customers who see the value and ready to lap it up, right? And it shouldn't require a Herculean effort from you to convert that into a customer, right? And that's not PMF. That's not PMF at all, in my opinion, right? Yeah, you have to do enough to help them understand, but it can't be a Herculean effort, and that fundamentally defies the PMF definition, right? So then you have to go back and question, what else I can do where the definition of PMF is truly met without any ambiguity. Again, this is a generic answer, not necessarily aligned to your industry and the dynamics your industry has. But for me, when I attend PMF, you should be able to scale. And scale to me is, you have a great go-to-market channel or go-to-market playbook. And then with enough capital, you can amplify it. And then you get this flywheel going.
Thanks.
Okay. One more question I think we can take, and then we...
Can I ask a second question if there's...
Yeah, sure. Unless it's... Anyway, you go ahead.
Hi, Ravi, this is Sagar again. This question is very pertinent to your profile, since you have done multiple things. Just drawing from that, you have handled teams which are very small to teams that are very large. So on a professional level, how did you upskill? Like, what was it that you did in a personal capacity to ensure that you are able to handle scale as an individual? Because sometimes I hear this a lot that, sometimes founders are not able to handle scale, and it's a personal issue. Like, it's because you are not able to handle scale. The problem fits, everything is great, but you as an individual are not able to handle the scale. So since you have managed a variety of teams. It seems like you've handled scale at the largest levels. What did you have to do personally, or was it just a very natural transition for you, for that matter?
No, Sagar, nothing is. I wish it was a natural transition. I won't go as far as saying it's a natural transition, and the continuous learning. And I think one thing will help is staying humble and knowing that you have to have that learner's mindset, and you don't have answers for everything. Will help you find answers to many things that you're grappling with. Right? Nothing is natural. Let me tell you that part. But you need to have this sort of a mindset and approach to be able to deal with the varying challenges, so scale being one of them. I think, one thing I've learned having spent 15 odd years in Valley is, I was incredibly fortunate about having a right peer group and a mentor ecosystem. And, you will learn a lot with your peers. You just have to have a open mind. Obviously, you can't be very open with everybody and anybody in your peer group, but, there are few that you trust, right? And then you can share some of the challenges that you're grappling with, and they will have gone through the same and found ways to do it better. Similarly, you found some solve that some learning that or you went through some learning that they haven't gone through. It's a peer-to-peer learning is very powerful. Your guard is lower. You open up and you learn a lot. And Valley taught me that culture, and I learned a lot. Right. When I relocated back in 2008 or thereabouts, I was missing that, but that was 2008. I didn't have a great ecosystem and peer group, or let alone mentors. But there's no such excuse here. Now the Indian startup ecosystem is thriving. It's probably the second best or third best, depending upon which metrics you measure. And there's enough out there for you to learn from your peer group, mentors and coaches and stuff like that. And there's a lot out there on in the digital medium as well for you to learn and reach out to the right person. So I think Sagar, they just learning and being humble, and finding that core group of peers where you can share and exchange. And it's a learning is a continuum. Obviously, you guys are pioneers in that. EdTech is built on that premise. Yeah, there's nothing natural. At least it didn't come naturally to me.
Thank you.
Yeah, hi. Ravi again, Samir here. We are a growth startup, EdTech, 600 odd set of customers, okay, corporate as well as education, large scale universities, IIMs, triple ITs, IITs, etc. One quick question is that as a CTO, there are always fancy things really do keep on coming. The technology is really changing its day, LLMs or GPTs or you name it. Okay, point number one. At the same time, you really always need to remain ahead of the competition. So you really need to add those particular set of features, which typically investor says this has to be disruptive. Okay. At the same time, a paradoxical effect out over there is that you really become irrelevant to your particular market while bringing in that kind of a disruptive feature. So as a CTO, when you really are looking at this kind of a challenge while making those particular set of decisions, what is the way you really do decide, or what is the way you will do approach this situation?
Great question. This is again very common. Nothing out of the ordinary. Everyone in this room should be grappling and embarking on this situation, right? So I think you have to have some framework and method to the madness to your investment. Investment as in investing your bandwidth, right? When you're defining your roadmap for the year or the quarter. I wouldn't say month. Things shouldn't vary from month to month, quarter. So first and foremost, your obligation, the reason why you exist is creating that solve for the customer and ensuring that customer sees the value in what you're building, right? And you should not lose focus on that. Right? It doesn't matter what your investors are saying. Doesn't matter the technology advancement that ecosystem is presenting to you. You can never lose sight of what customer wants, right? You have to have a real pulse. perfect solution is marrying the technology advancements to customer need and turning that into a compelling value that other cannot match is a sweet spot. Of course, you have to have a smarts and cognizance of identifying that sweet spot, and obviously then incentives are aligned. You're leveraging the greatest technology out there and taking into context the customer problem and providing a disproportionate value that you would never deliver otherwise, and that will hold you in good stead, and hopefully that will bring you many more customers, right? Then it's a very well justified investment. There's also this thing, right? You can't always focus on run the business or grow the current business. You know what? Not many have too much of luxury to focus on moonshots, right? It's you can keep some budget. Figuring out what are those moonshots, and that'll set you apart from the others. But you also have to resign to the fact that some of them may not see the light of the day, or they may not have a acceptance from the customer. And so be it. You have to be comfortable with that. But if they do, find some resonance, it should have an exponential impact on your business, right? So for that, you allocate some budget. But I personally had these right ideas, but for me, push come to shove, if I have to take care of the customer needs right now, a good chunk of my mind share, our value creation is to take care of the customers that I have a view right in front of me, versus building something and expecting I'll have a new customer segment in future.
Thank you.
Okay, I think with that, we bring this to a close. So someone here wants to give a little vote of thanks. Go ahead.
Thank you for such a great session, sir.
Thank
you,
you,
Ravi.
man. Yeah, wishing you guys all the very best.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.